I never believed a jungle could feel alive in the way people describe in old expedition books. Like the trees watched every step you took, like the air itself waited for you to make a mistake. But during those days deep in the Amazon, I learned that some places don't want you there. Some places test you, and some places, something inside them tests you in ways you don't even have a name for. I'm not exaggerating when I say that the first sign we were not alone came long before we heard it, long before we saw anything, long before we realized something in that forest had decided we were prey. The hook moment? It happened the first night. The moment I saw a pair of eyes that weren't any animal I knew, too wide, too level, too intelligent, reflecting from between the trees. I didn't tell the others at first, because what was I supposed to say? Hey guys, something out there is watching us with human-sized eyes but standing too high above the ground to actually be human. Nobody would have believed me, and I didn't want to start panic. We were 5 in total. Daniel, a biologist with a stubborn confidence that drove everyone crazy. Marco, the older guide who'd spent half his life in the Amazon. Carla, a documentary filmmaker who wouldn't stop filming even when things got tense. Jaime, young, fast, strong, but terrified of insects, and me. I won't say my name, what happened still feels too close, but I'll say this. I was the one who kept thinking something felt off even before anything happened. A pressure, a heaviness, like being followed by a shadow you can't shake off. We were traveling to a remote region, searching for fragments of an old indigenous trail. The purpose of the expedition didn't matter later. What mattered was where we ended up. Deep inside a region with no roads, no clearings, no sign of recent human passage, not even from local tribes. It was a place Marco told us should have been quiet. But on the first afternoon, when we noticed the birds had stopped singing, he got uneasy. He didn't say anything out loud, but I saw it in his posture. Guides like him don't show fear unless they feel something real. By sunset, the forest turned eerily still. No buzzing, no cicadas, no frogs calling. Even the river seemed to hush. That silence felt thick, like walking into a church where something sacred or dangerous had just happened. We set up camp anyway, mostly because Daniel didn't want to backtrack. The man was obsessed, and when he wanted something, logic stopped existing. We cooked, we talked, we pretended things were normal. And then, around 9 p.m., something walked around our campsite. We all heard it. Heavy steps, slow, deliberate circling, not a jaguar. Jaguars move like shadows. This thing walked with weight, with intent. We pointed flashlights into the trees, but the light wasn't strong enough to penetrate the layers of vines and foliage. Marco tried to calm us down. "Could be tapir," he said. But even he didn't sound convinced. A tapir could be heavy, but they don't circle you. They run, and they don't stop and stand there listening the way this thing did. We eventually settled into our hammocks with that uneasiness parked inside our chests. That's when I saw the eyes. They were far away, maybe 30 meters, almost blended into the dark between 2 massive trees. But they were unmistakable. 2 glowing points, spaced apart like they belonged to something tall, something bigger than any person. They didn't blink. They didn't sway like an animal trying to gauge distance. They just stared. I froze in my hammock, afraid to even breathe. I remember gripping the edge of the fabric so hard my fingers hurt. The thing stayed there for about 30 seconds. 30 seconds that felt like someone slowly pulling a thread inside my skull. Then it lowered, almost like dropping closer to the ground, and vanished. But it didn't run. It didn't make a sound. It just dissolved back into the forest. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I told Marco what I saw. He listened without laughter. He didn't joke. He didn't dismiss me. He just stared into the forest and said, "We shouldn't be here." And that was the moment I learned that if a man like him says something like that, you pack your things and leave. But Daniel refused. He insisted that whatever we heard was just wildlife, and that no primitive superstition could derail his project. We argued for hours. Every time we tried to move, he kept blocking the trail, accusing us of paranoia. Normally, I would have pushed back harder, but something about his desperation felt wrong. almost like he feared leaving more than staying. By noon, we gave up arguing. We moved forward anyway, deeper into the forest. By evening, we found the first sign. On the side of the trail, half hidden by fallen leaves, we spotted a footprint. Large, human-like, but too long. And the toes were wrong, sharp, almost clawed, as if something dragged its weight forward using both its feet and something else. The print was fresh, no more than a few hours old, and it was heading the same direction we were. That's when Jaime lost it. He dropped his backpack, sweating, eyes wide, saying he didn't sign up for monsters. But we calmed him and kept moving. What else were we going to do? Night was coming, and stopping meant staying exposed. The forest continued getting quieter. No birds, no insects. It felt like walking through the lungs of something holding its breath. Just before sunset, we reached a small clearing. Strange place. Perfectly circular. No undergrowth, no fallen logs, nothing. As if something regularly came there and flattened everything. Marco told us to avoid setting camp there, but Daniel insisted that it was the safest spot because it had visibility. Marco tried to argue, but Daniel was relentless. We set our hammocks reluctantly, each of us double-checking knots, triple-checking the edges of the clearing. Darkness came fast. The temperature dropped harder than usual, and that night I understood the meaning of being hunted. It began with a sound, a single snap of a branch followed by slow steps, but not walking, more like crawling. The steps were too low to the ground. Something dragged itself around us. Not fast, not clumsy, purposeful, patient, testing the perimeter. Carla whispered to me that she saw movement near the tree line, but she couldn't describe it. It's bending wrong, she said. Like its joints don't move where they should. She kept shaking, clutching her camera, but too afraid to turn it on. Then we smelled it. A thick, putrid stench like decaying meat, but mixed with something chemical, almost metallic. It drifted across the clearing, making us gag. Jaime whispered for us to pack and run, but Marco whispered back that running at night was at Sarasara's side. A few minutes later, something exhaled near us. Not a snort, not a growl. A slow, deliberate exhale. And it came from above. I don't know what kind of creature can climb a tree silently, position itself above humans, and breathe down on them like it's savoring the moment. But that's exactly what it did. I aimed my flashlight upward, my hand shaking so hard I could barely hold it. And for a split second I saw something clinging to the trunk. Long limbs, pale skin, no fur, and eyes, those same reflective eyes from last night, staring directly at me, unblinking. When the light hit it, it moved, not away, not startled. It moved around the trunk like water spreading around a rock. Too smooth, too fluid for anything with bones. I dropped the flashlight. Carla screamed. And the worst part? The scream wasn't what scared it. It stayed, watching, studying, almost curious. Marco shouted for us to stay together, but Daniel, in sheer panic or madness, ran, bolted straight into the trees. I saw the creature shift direction, not chasing blindly, tracking him, following him like it already knew his path, like it could see in the dark. We heard Daniel scream in the distance, a raw, guttural scream that cut across the trees like something being torn apart. Not physically, but mentally, like he saw something that broke him. We didn't see Daniel again that night, but we heard him. Hours later, when the creature finally left, his voice came from somewhere deep in the trees. "Don't leave me, please, don't leave me alone." But the tone was wrong. Too calm, too slow, too imitated. Marco grabbed my arm and whispered, "That's not him. Don't answer." And I believed him instantly. We stayed frozen in our hammocks, barely breathing, listening to that voice drift through the trees, like it was being carried by the wind. It called again. Same tone, same slowness, same unnatural calm. "Don't leave me. It's dark. It's cold. I need help." But every instinct inside me screamed that no human could sound like that. The pitch was too steady. No tremble, no desperation, just mimicry. Something trying to copy the sounds a frightened man might make. but doing it wrong, like someone repeating words phonetically without understanding their meaning. Marco whispered for us to stay silent. Jaime had tears streaming down his face. Carla covered her mouth to stop herself from sobbing. The forest around us felt thick, oppressive. I had never felt fear so physical before, like it crawled between your ribs and sat on your lungs. The voice stopped eventually, after maybe 20 minutes, replaced by nothing but that suffocating silence. We waited. Every minute stretched into eternity. By dawn, we were barely conscious from exhaustion. As soon as there was enough light to see, Marco told us to pack. "We leave now," he said. No debate, no hesitation. Even Carla, who normally questioned everything, didn't argue. We moved quickly, checking the perimeter first. There was no sign of Daniel. No footprints. No torn vegetation. Nothing to indicate he ever ran into the forest. That was the worst part. There should have been tracks. Something heavy must have moved through the clearing, yet the ground looked undisturbed, like the forest swallowed every trace. As we walked, the jungle's silence followed us. No animals, no wind. Even the leaves seemed to muffle our footsteps. The air felt colder, heavier. It was as if the forest was holding its breath again, waiting for something. Waiting for us to break. Around mid-morning, we found something that made my stomach knot. A piece of Daniel's shirt torn and tangled in a low branch, about 2 meters off the ground. Not torn horizontally, like snagging. It was torn vertically, shredded downward, as if something dragged him up or down with claws or long fingers. The fabric was still slightly warm, like it hadn't been exposed long. Jaime refused to get closer. "That's not human," he said. "That's not an animal. That's something else." We didn't disagree. Marco insisted we move faster. "We go back to the river," he said. "We follow the water. If it wants us, it'll have a harder time near open current." I didn't know if that was true, but he sounded like a man who had seen enough in his life to trust his instincts. The deeper we walked, the more we felt watched. Not followed. Watched. Like something moved parallel to us, matching our pace, staying hidden. At times we heard faint rustling, but every time we turned, nothing was there. But I could feel it, the same presence from the night before. The thing with the eyes. The thing that moved too smoothly. Carla whispered, "It's hunting us." Not even as a question. Just a fact she had accepted. Around noon, when the sun should have been strongest, the canopy above us darkened. Clouds rolled in unnaturally fast. The light dimmed into a sickly yellow-green shade. It felt like walking inside a bruise. That was when Marco stopped abruptly, raising his hand. On the trail ahead was a mark. Long, deep grooves etched into a tree trunk. 4 lines evenly spaced, each one deeper than a human fingernail could make. Not a jaguar. Jaguars claw sideways, marking territory. This was vertical, deliberate, straight, like a warning or a boundary. Marco leaned close, inhaled slightly, and his face went pale. The groove smelled like that same metallic rot from last night. "We're close to where it stays," he whispered. "We need to get out of this area, now." We changed direction immediately, veering toward the river. But whatever lived in that jungle didn't like that idea. We heard it behind us. Not footsteps, not growling. Something else, like a branch splitting slowly or bones bending. A wet, slow sound that didn't belong to anything with a normal skeleton. We ran, or tried to. The vines seemed thicker, grabbing at our legs. Carla tripped twice. Jaime kept looking back, crying, whispering prayers. The jungle didn't feel natural anymore. It felt shaped, manipulated, as if the creature controlled it. Then we reached a fallen log that blocked the trail. We climbed over it. I was the last one. When I swung my leg across, a hand or something shaped like a hand grabbed my ankle. Long fingers. Cold. Too strong. I screamed, kicking violently. The hand didn't pull, it just held. Like it was testing me, feeling me, measuring me. Marco rushed back, grabbed my shoulders, and yanked with all his strength. The grip loosened suddenly, and I fell backward onto him. I looked down at the log. Nothing. No hand, no arm. Just dark moss and broken bark. But my ankle burned, like frostbite. We didn't talk. We just ran until we reached the riverbank. The moment we stepped out of the tree line, the air felt less suffocating. Still silent, yes, but lighter. Like the creature preferred the deep forest. Marco told us to follow the river upstream. If we were lucky, we'd reach higher ground or some recognizable landmark. I wasn't sure luck existed there, but it was the only plan we had. We walked along the river for hours. The current was fast, the water cold, but at least we didn't feel surrounded anymore. For a while, I almost believed we had a chance, until we saw something on a rock in the middle of the river. It was Daniel's backpack, ripped open, the contents gone except for one thing: his camera placed neatly on top. Too neatly, as if someone, or something, set it there intentionally for us to see. Carla waded into the water to grab it. Marco tried to stop her, but she was desperate to find anything that could explain what we were dealing with. She brought the camera back to the shore, wiping mud from the lens. The camera was still functional. Her hands shook as she pressed play. The screen flickered. Then footage started, shaky, frantic, filmed by Daniel as he ran through the jungle the night before. We saw nothing at first, just blurred branches and darkness. His breathing was loud, panicked. He kept whispering, "It's behind me, it's behind me." Then the camera panned upward, accidentally maybe, but just long enough for us to see something move between the trees, tall, thin, pale, its limbs bending at angles that made my stomach twist. It wasn't running. It was gliding almost, its movements too smooth, too fluid. No animal on Earth moved like that. Daniel screamed. The camera spun. Then the video cut abruptly, leaving only darkness. Carla dropped the camera. Jaime backed away, shaking uncontrollably. "We're dead," he said. "It's playing with us. It left that camera for us. It wants us scared." And he was right. That's exactly what it wanted. We kept moving. The riverbank narrowed. Twice we heard splashes behind us, but every time we turned, nothing was there. The sky was darkening again, not because of the hour, but because of the unnatural clouds gathering above the canopy. By late afternoon, we found a narrow ridge overlooking the forest. Marco suggested we camp there. It was elevated, less accessible, and gave us visibility. We didn't want to stop, but we were exhausted. Our legs trembled, our throats were dry. Fear drains energy in ways you don't anticipate. We set up the hammocks quickly, staying close together. Carla curled up, her eyes empty. Jaime sat with his back to a tree, gripping a broken branch as if it were a weapon. Marco stayed awake, scanning the forest with a seriousness I had never seen in him. Night fell. The forest went quiet again, the air grew cold, and then, at almost the exact same hour as the night before, we heard it. Not footsteps, not crawling. Something else. A faint tapping, on wood, rhythmic, slow, coming from multiple directions. Then we heard something moving up the ridge, not walking, pulling itself. Something dragging weight, something climbing toward us. Carla started crying silently. Jaime whispered, "Please, please, please." I felt the same fear, thick and primal. Marco tightened his grip on his machete, but even he looked like a man preparing to face something he didn't understand. The tapping stopped, and then something whispered our names. Not one name. All of them. Each whispered in a different tone. Some too deep, some too soft, some overlapping, like multiple voices trying to imitate us at once, trying to match our sounds, trying to be us. It whispered my name last, and when it did, it sounded perfect, too perfect. When it whispered my name with that perfect tone, my exact inflection, my exact breathiness, the way I say it when I'm tired, I felt something inside me snap, not from fear itself, but from the realization that whatever hunted us wasn't just a creature. It was intelligent, patient, listening, learning, studying us the entire time, picking apart the way we spoke, the way we breathed, the way we panicked. It didn't just want to hunt us, it wanted to understand us. And that thought was more terrifying than claws or teeth or any physical threat, because you can't fight something that learns from you in real time. The whisper echoed over the ridge, then vanished into the thick darkness. We froze, waiting for the next sound. Instead, Something else came. Movement. Fast, circling movement. It darted around us in the dark, never letting us see it. Only hear the brush of leaves, the scrape of bark, the subtle shift of weight. Carla clutched my arm so tightly her nails dug into my skin. Jaime whispered that he couldn't take it anymore, that he'd jump off the ridge if it meant escaping that thing. But Marco held us together with nothing but his voice. Stay close. If it gets one of us alone, that's what it wants. Stay close. It circled for minutes, or hours. Time meant nothing in that darkness. The fear stretched it, bending every second into a lifetime. Then without warning, something tapped my hammock. A soft, deliberate tap, like a finger, just once. The fabric shook slightly and I felt the cold radiating through it, like the touch of someone who had never felt warmth. I nearly screamed, but Marco grabbed my shoulder, shaking his head violently. No noise, no movement. Don't give it anything. When the tapping stopped, Jaime lost it. He jumped out of his hammock and bolted down the ridge, screaming. We all shouted after him, but his voice faded into the trees. Something moved after him. Fast. Too fast. The sound of it cutting through the undergrowth was like listening to bone scrape over stone. His scream lasted 4 seconds. 4. And then it cut off so abruptly it felt like the jungle swallowed the sound itself. Carla fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Marco looked down the ridge, jaw clenched, eyes wet. But he didn't move. He knew chasing Jaime meant death. He wasn't being cold, he was being realistic. But the creature wasn't finished, not even close. Its voice drifted back up the ridge again. Jaime's voice. But wrong, completely wrong, like someone dragging the audio out too slowly. Come back, help me. Carla covered her ears. I felt my stomach twist so violently I thought I'd throw up. But Marco stared into the darkness with a hatred I hadn't seen before. Not fear anymore. Hatred, as if he recognized that thing. He whispered, Curupira's shadow, but twisted wrong. I knew the folklore, the forest guardian, the protector. But nothing in those stories looked anything like the creature hunting us. Whatever this was, it wasn't a guardian. It wasn't protecting the forest. It was something else entirely. Something that didn't belong. By dawn, we were half-conscious, holding machetes with numb hands, eyes burning from staying awake all night. The creature retreated when the sky turned gray, not fully gone, just distanced, like the light annoyed it. We had 2 survivors, me, Marco, and Carla, 3 people out of 5, and we all knew we wouldn't survive another night if we didn't escape that day. Marco decided we'd follow the river downstream instead of up. If it wants us away from somewhere, we go toward what it avoids, he said. We didn't argue. We were past questioning him. At that point, he was the only one who still made decisions without breaking down. The trek was brutal. The riverbanks were slippery, narrow, covered in moss. Carla almost fell twice. I heard the creature following us the entire time, never close but not far either. It kept pace with us, always to the left, deeper in the forest. Every once in a while, we'd hear branches crack under its weight or the faint, wet sound of its limbs bending. By mid-morning, we found something that shouldn't have been there. A wooden carving, old, weathered, embedded in the ground like a warning sign. The carving showed something tall, thin, with long arms and hollow eyes. Around it were smaller figures, people, drawn in fear or pain. And at the top, a symbol. A circle with 3 vertical lines inside it. Marco paled. I've seen this before, he whispered. Old tribes spoke of a watcher, not a guardian. A hunter of paths. A thing that followed travelers who crossed forbidden zones. It didn't protect the forest. It protected something inside it. Protected something. Or kept it contained. Before he could explain further, we heard a sound that chilled me to the core. A voice. My voice, from the forest behind us, repeating something I had said earlier that morning. We need to go. Now. Identical tone, identical rhythm, a perfect copy. It wasn't trying to lure us anymore, it was boasting, showing off what it had learned, how well it listened. We started running, The river roared beside us as the path narrowed. At one point, the creature got so close I heard it breathe behind me, a deep rattling breath like wind moving through hollow wood. The ridge ahead broke into a steep slope. We slid down it, half falling, grabbing roots and vines. When we reached the bottom, we saw salvation, or the closest thing to it. A broken wooden structure, an abandoned outpost, maybe from old researchers or loggers. Whatever it was, it had walls, a door, a roof, a place to hide. We ran inside and barricaded everything with old crates and planks. The outpost smelled like mold and dust, but it felt safer than the open forest. Carla curled in a corner, shaking violently. I held her hand, whispering we'd make it out, even though I didn't believe it myself. Outside, the creature circled, slowly, almost calmly, like it knew we had nowhere else to go, like it was waiting for night. Marco searched the place desperately, looking for anything. Maps, radios, flares. He found a locked metal case under a broken table. He smashed it open with his machete. Inside was a flare gun with 2 flares, 2 shots, 2 chances. We waited. The creature tapped on the walls, scraped its nails along the boards, whispered our names in every tone it had learned. Sometimes deep like Marco, sometimes trembling like Carla, sometimes in my perfect voice. Hours passed. We watched the sunlight through the cracks. And when the sky finally began to darken, everything outside went silent. That's when Marco stood up. "If we stay," he said, "it'll take us one by one." He loaded the flare gun. We run on my signal. We removed the barricades as quietly as possible. My hands shook so badly I dropped one of the planks. The moment it hit the floor, the creature let out a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard. A wet, distorted shriek, as if it tried to imitate multiple animals at once and failed at all of them. Marco fired the first flare straight into the trees. Red light exploded across the jungle, and for the first time we saw the full shape of the creature clearly. Tall, too tall, pale as bone, limbs too long, joints bent backward and sideways. Its face, God. Its face was smooth, almost featureless except for those wide, reflective eyes and a slit that might have been a mouth or a wound. The flare burned bright, and the creature recoiled violently like it was in agony. That was our chance. We sprinted into the jungle, following the river. The creature came after us instantly, moving like liquid shadow, unaffected by obstacles, bending around trees, sliding across the ground. Carla fell. I grabbed her arm. Marco fired the second flare directly at the creature's head. The light blinded it again, giving us precious seconds. We reached a steep drop where the river crashed into a fast-moving gorge. The water was violent, deadly, but staying meant a worse death. Marco didn't hesitate. He pushed us both toward the edge. "Jump!" he shouted. "We can't leave you," Carla cried. "I'll slow it down. Jump!" We didn't have time to argue. The creature was almost on him. I grabbed Carla's hand and leaped into the raging water. The shock was like ice knifing into my lungs. The current spun us violently, smashing us into rocks, dragging us under, spitting us back out. I looked up once before the water pulled me under completely. I saw Marco facing the creature, machete in one hand, the last flare burning in the other. I don't know what happened to him. I never saw him again. The river eventually spat me and Carla onto a muddy bank miles downstream. We were bruised, bleeding, barely conscious. It took us 2 days to find a rescue team. Carla barely spoke after that. I couldn't blame her. They asked what happened. I told them the truth. They didn't believe a word. But at night sometimes I hear something outside my window. A soft tapping, a whisper, a voice that sounds almost like mine. And every time I hear it, I remember the truth I learned in that jungle. Some things don't stop hunting just because you left their territory. Some things learn you, some things follow. And I know one day it'll stop whispering from outside and whisper from inside.